Yes, okay. Hello, everybody. I'm really pleased to be with you. I'm speaking from France, from the south of France, and I will talk about intercultural storytelling in game design. So I'm gonna share my screen. I hope it will work. Alors. And so I don't have any backup, so I hope it's good for you and that you can see my my screen. So let's speak about intercultural storytelling in game design and in the frame of my art and game world tour that I just ended very lately. First, I would like to introduce myself and why I will speak about intercultural storytelling today. So,
poser la question de l'identité à l'heure du numérique.
First,
mais se poser la question de l'identité à l'heure du numérique, c'est se poser la question de nos identités multiples, de tous ces autres que nous avons à l'intérieur de nous-mêmes, de cette identité fondée par notre altérité.
So I just wanted to show you an extract of my machinima. I is another that I created in 2012, dealing about identity in the digital era. And as you can see, I speak, it's my voice, but I speak inside the body of a black man because I wanted to speak about my identity, but in a different way. I'm the little daughter of an anarchist who left Ukraine at the age of 12 and crossed Europe to live in France, the country of freedom, so-called. And I'm also the daughter of a Tunisian-born man, my father. And as from the beginning, I was educated with multicultural influences. First, the never-ending stories from North Africa by my father. Some very, very hard stories about my Jewish family exterminated during the last World War. And more likely, many, many tales from Africa, North Africa, India, Latin America, and also a lot of international literature, thanks to my mother, who, when I was a teenager and younger, was organizing intercultural book exhibitions with books written in all the community languages present in the town where we were living at that time. So interculturality is really in part of my background. Also, I never felt French before to go abroad. I have to say that after 4 months in Togo, and being called, I don't know how many times Yovo per day, I know that I'm French and I love cheese and wine, but I have to say that I never felt French when I was in France because I had to face a lot of racism because we were moving from place to place and I was always a stranger because France is really a racist country. Also, as a kid and as a teenager, I couldn't really stand French history courses because it's highly political history, and France was erasing a lot of international influences to focus on our ancestor, the Gauls, which I couldn't rely to. Then how I became an art and game curator. My background was in political science studies. And in the 90s, I discussed with some teenagers and they told me that they were dreaming in video game, that they love so much video game that they would prefer to live in video games, and even they preferred video games to TV. So talking with them, I realized that games were a very, very serious matter. because if they were able to shape our imagination, our imaginary, thus they were also able to manipulate people's mind. And with a certain moral, a certain ethic, certain type of representation. So I decided as a cultural entrepreneur to promote alternative, artistic, and experimental games in order to show the other side of game production. At that time, we weren't talking about indie game, we were talking about more alternative or, yeah, independent studios. But I try to promote from the very beginning games outside of the big names of the big industry. And that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. But I have to say, mostly in Europe, US, Canada, and Australia, and most of the time, featuring content coming from the same part of the world. Also, thanks to these exhibitions and I was traveling a lot to give machinima workshops. So this movie is done with video game. And more I was traveling, more I was giving workshops, more I realized that everywhere in the world I was going, we were all playing to the same video games. Again, the big names. I mean, even when the local culture were very strong, we were playing the same game, always GTA, FIFA, and now Fortnite. So I was thinking, isn't it possible to play other kind of games and games produced locally and to discover the type of stories? So that's why, to celebrate my 20 years as an art and game curator, I embarked in 2019 in a world tour in order to meet digital artists and independent game makers in 13 countries. So yeah, I know I am privileged, but I put everything I had to do that. I'm homeless now, somehow. So I went to Korea, Taiwan, Indonesia, Thailand, Japan, India, Colombia, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Nigeria, Ghana. I ended in Togo, where I was stopped by the pandemic. I'm just back to France very lately. Along my journey, because all my work is about meetings and exchanges, I gave lectures about the relationship between art and video games, machinima workshops as well. I also curated some exhibitions, and my main aim was to disseminate and to promote all the games I found during my journey, as I am doing today, I hope. Because I have to say that I do believe in mixes. I see myself as a mix. I also really do believe in exchanges, and I hate purity, and I hate cultural ghettos. So my aims for this world tour were to discover the culture, the history, or the politics of a country through its video games, but also to promote diversity in terms of gender, sexuality, and geographical origin. I guess we are not all Western, white, young male, so perhaps it could be nice to see other type of games. I always think about the book of Anna Entropy, the video game Zainesters, where she really urges everybody to create games, because she believes that more there will be diverse people creating games, more there will be different type of games, different type of content. So I totally believe in that as well. I also wanted to tell another kind of story about video games outside of Europe, US, and Japan, because during the last 20 years, I curated some retro gaming exhibitions, and most of the time we were only showing American or European machines, sometimes Japanese machine, but you know, like, wow. So I was sure that there was another story outside of the of this world, and that's what I wanted to discover, because I wanted to discover other type of stories, other type of cultures, but also rituals, legends, myths, but also other types of character representations, city representation, and other type of landscape. So to start with this very short conference or talk, I'm going to give you some examples of the games I really enjoyed during my journey, and who show what I mean by discovering the culture, the history, or the politics of a country through the game. First, here is a game made by Somi in South Korea. The name is Replica. It's a game about control and surveillance. And for Somi, it was a way to deal with a law that was passed in South Korea some years ago, which was a little bit against internet freedom, and he wanted to show what could happen if this law would meet the wrong state, a very controlling state. And with everything that is happening right now with the virus, and it's very up to date. So thanks to this game, you can just catch a little bit some information about the law in Korea. So also in Korea, this game hasn't been published yet. It's a game made by the studio Gambrizzi. The name is The Wednesday. I show you an extract, and then I will. I'm going to explain you why it is called The Wednesday. Right now, you can see a former comfort woman were this woman from South Korea, but also Taiwan, Indonesia, that were captured by Japanese during the last World War. They captured them and they prostituted them in military camps. For South Korea, or for Korea, sorry, we talk about 100,000 women. Most of them were killed at the end of the war. Few of them survived, and after many years, they started to speak, and they started to demonstrate every Wednesday in front of the Japanese embassy in Korea. That's why the game is called The Wednesday, and it featured a former comfort woman who survived, and she has the power to go back in the past, and thanks to the information available today, perhaps she will succeed to save herself and also her comrades there. So it's really like a game dealing with post-Japanese colonialism and nowadays history, because this problem is still a reason of conflict between the two countries. Now let's go in Taiwan with the studio, Red Candle Studio, who did this horror survival game, Detention. It's happening inside the former Japanese high school, because Taiwan was also, again, colonized by Japanese. But the context is the White Terror. And the White Terror in Taiwan was from the... Sorry, I'm not sure about the date, but I know that it ended in the 80s, and Taiwan was under the regulation of Chinese government, and you had to follow the rule, otherwise you were arrested, and most of the people died and disappeared. So thanks to this game, you can just catch a little bit of that era and how it was. And it's very important because most of the people who lived at that time don't speak about it. So for the new generation, it's a good way to know their story. And now this game is played at school because it's a good way, again, to know the past. We have to know that the same studio also created the game Possession, which was forbidden by China after only 1 week of being online on Steam, because sadly the developers forgot a meme that they put in the game, Winnie the Pooh, and as it's a way to have fun on their president, China refused to let this game online. So this question of power and story are not only from the past, but still very present. In a more light way, let's go to Indonesia with the game She and the Light Bearer, made by Brigitte Arena from Mojiken Studio. It's a game that I love because when I was in Indonesia, trying to meet as many developers and artists I could, I didn't really have the time to wander in the nature. So thanks to this game, you can discover the Indonesian forest, and also you can perhaps catch a little bit of what could be animism, because in this game you are looking for the secrets of Mother Nature, but you are also wandering in this really, really beautiful Indonesian nature. I love this game. And what is interesting is that when I interviewed them, they told me that none of them were a game maker at the beginning. They were all illustrators taught in art schools, but they learned how to make games by doing games. And what they wanted was to be able to play in their environment. I hope I speak well at your place, Brigitte. To stay in the Indonesian forest and also to catch a little bit of the Indonesian culture, even if it's really like badly said, because what I understood while being there is that each island of this archipelago is very different, the culture is very different, and even in each island, depending on the region you are in, it's totally different. So I speak about Indonesian culture, but it's very, let's say that now I'm going to show you a game that was made in Bandung, Pamali, by Storytell's studio. In this game, you are also entering the Indonesian forest and discovering Indonesian villages. But most importantly, if you want to win that game or to be good in that game, you have to understand and to know what are the funeral rites and how not to offend the spirits. And so I'm going to show you an extract. And because I see that time is passing very fast. What is interesting also is that you have some insights of the political situation, because sometimes you hear about demonstrations, and so it's a very good game to understand what is the beliefs in Indonesia. Still in Indonesia, Coffee Talk by Fahmi Hasni from Toge Production. It's funny because it's set it up in Seattle, because they wanted to really reach the international market. So they decided to take Seattle as a background. But thanks to Fahmi Hasni, he was totally inspired by stories he was listening in his own life or in coffees. And what is interesting with this game is that in a very ludic and light way, you can understand some of the society matters in Indonesia, like racism, homosexuality, and this type of subject are not really spoken or talked there. So it's a good way to deal with this subject. Now let's go to Thailand, and with a subject that is quite universal, even if it was totally based on local stories. In Make It Rain, you can make rain money on policemen, but also on politicians, because then they will buy the policemen. So it's a game about corruption in Thailand. And as I said, as an introduction, it's really a subject we can all relate to, I guess, in all our countries. Now, so I won't show you the website because I'm not sure to be able to come back to my presentation, but please go online and discover Enter Sultana's Reality by Afra Shafiq. It's an interactive story, a game online that is dealing with the representation of women during the colonial era in India. And because she worked from some archives in Kolkata, and she was amazed by the type of representation of women always waiting at the window. We don't know what, perhaps they were waiting for the prince. And then she was also seeing a lot of images of women with books, because from the time of the colonial era, let's say that English people started to, they decided that women have to be educated, but not an emancipative education, more an education to be a good woman for her husband. So it's a very, very good artwork, game, and interactive story from India and the colonial era. Now, a game that was just published, and it's a very, very long story. I'm super happy they made it, Nodding Heads Games in India, because they put a lot of themselves in that game. So Raji, which is an ancient epic from India. What is interesting, I'm going to show you an extract. I'm not sure you can hear me, but that game was made thanks to one of the game developers who was once in Rajasthan, and he was amazed by the monuments, the stairs, and he was like, oh, if only I could play in this type of environment, if only I could play being surrounded by this ancient artwork. And it was, I guess, in 2014, and after many years, they succeeded to produce that game. And so we are really in an ancient Indian environment, and the sound and the music is also people from India, so we are really immersed in Indian environment. in the same way, because I think that for our talk today it's important, I would like to show you Mystic Pillars by Holy Co-Production, another game studio in India. It's an immersive puzzle game in the ancient India, but as you will hear, and I won't talk at the same time, it is the voiceover is told in the local language. I'm sorry, I don't remember which language or dialect it is. They have more like 100 or 1,000 different dialects in India. So, and I hope I'm not mistaking the words. With my English is sometimes a bit poor. So here is an extract.
ಸಾಹಸ ಮತ್ತು ಕೌತುಕಗಳನ್ನು ಅರಸುತ್ತಾ ವಿಶ್ವ ಪರ್ಯಟನೆ ಮಾಡುತ್ತಿರುವ ಪಯಣಿಗರು ದೀರ್ಘಕಾಲದ ದೇಶ ಪರ್ಯಟನೆಯ ನಂತರ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ದಿವ್ಯ ಕಾಂತಿಯಿಂದ ಬೆಳಗುತ್ತಿರುವ ನಿರ್ಜನ ಸ್ಥಳವೊಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಬರುತ್ತೀರಿ. ನೀವು ಹಾಗೆ ಮುಂದುವರಿಯುತ್ತಿದ್ದಂತೆ ಆ ಭೂಪ್ರದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲಲ್ಲಿ ಎದ್ದು ನಿಂತಿದ್ದ ದೈತ್ಯಾಕಾರದ ಕಂಬಗಳ ನೆರಳುಗಳನ್ನು
I have to be a bit faster. I'm really sorry about that. But this game is also available in very many different languages, and I think it's very important for intercultural storytelling. Now we go to Argentina, and I have to say that it's also important to mention that this game was created by Gabi Pella. She decided to take one of the oldest era in Buenos Aires as an environment for that game, Montana Misteriosa. It's very important because in Argentina, nothing that is done in Argentina is good for most of the people. So there are very few games which feature an Argentinian environment, and so it's one of the few possibility to wander in the Buenos Aires streets thanks to that game. Also, very quickly, I'm so sorry for the person I'm showing the work. I wanted to show you another Argentinian art game by Laura Palavecino, Beyond the Garden, which was shown at the Game on El Arte del Juego last year in Buenos Aires. Because what is important is that the character is planting native seeds. And when we have a decolonial perception of history, it's important to go back to natives, but also native seeds. For example, in Colombia, it was quite impossible to find native plants in Bogota because it was totally erased by the colons. Also, very quickly, sorry again, the game Ita, created by Daniela Fernandez. Daniela, he's a descendant of an indigenous population from the North Argentina, and she really wanted to help people to discover her ancestors, but also the legends, the myths, and the indigenous culture. And it's important because it's not done by someone else on indigenous people, but by the descendants. Perhaps it's not really part of our talk, but I think it's still very important. This game, Florescer, is a game from Brazil, made by a student from the University of Alembe Morumbi, and it presents the life of a transgender teenager, just to show what are that the life of this teenager is really like everyone's life, but also to show what are the problems that can face transgender people. This game by Enrique Lagostera is about the immigration system and the capitalist discourses on multiculturalism. I think my time is almost past, so I'm sorry. I have to go on. But please check the game of. I would like to show you also.
Para mim, pessoalmente, trabalhar nesse projeto foi descoberta, porque...
Made by Guilherme Messe. He did this game with the indigenous population of the Uniqueen through drawing workshops, music workshops. So it was really a game made with Nova California by Game Arte is also a game that is based on a Brazilian tale, and the purpose of Game Arte is also to enhance the Afro-Brazilian culture in Brazil, because Afro-Brazilian are underrepresented in the Brazilian game production also. And this will be my transition with the game industry and the game production in Africa. The two games I'm going to show you are from Brazil, and they are dealing with candomblé and Contos de Ifa by Ricardo Ruiz. Is a game made through workshops with teenagers, but also elderly people, because the idea was to listen to the stories of elderly people about ancestrality, but also about candomblé, based on Yoruba beliefs and god and goddess. And this game as well, made by some students in São Paulo, Ifa Olokun Bright, is like a Metroidvania game, but it's a journey in the Yoruba lands, and you have to unlock the powers of the Orishas. So I found games in Brazil about Yoruba beliefs, but when I went in Nigeria, I couldn't find this type of game. I just found, and it's not a critique, absolutely not a critique, but I found, for example, a game where you fight with the Bible, which is totally okay, but perhaps less local that I could have hoped. So if we talk about intercultural storytelling in game design, I think that we really have to be the narrators of our own stories, and not, and not let the others to tell our story. It's available for everywhere, because when we don't speak about colonialism, we can still speak about cultural imperialism, and we are still facing that imperialism. So we really have to be the narrators of our own stories. For that, we need to research and present local stories, legends, myths. I also think that we need to immerse the audience into local landscapes, cities, assets, and it's not so easy, because most of the assets available are, for example, if we take Unity game engine, most of the assets look like not African assets. I also think that it's good to use local languages and dialects, and then perhaps subtitle it. Also local voiceover and subtitle it. Of course, there are like cost of localization, but I really do believe that it's important to, you know, to do a counter cultural imperialism and to reverse the thing. I think it's also very interesting to, so it's a bit close to what I said before about being the narrator of our own stories, but to use local history, local testimonies to deal with our current history. And as we saw in Haji or in Contos de Ifa, to use local music, drawings, artworks, because it will help to immerse people in their environment. I'm sure you already saw that in the previous days, but when I was in Nigeria, I was really amazed to meet Uchenna Okiya, who already did a presentation, because when we talk about using assets from Africa, which are not most of the time available, we need to create these assets. And I really enjoy his work of 3D scanning and using photogrammetry to create African-based 3D assets. And I also met someone else who did the same attempt by 3D scanning or doing photogrammetry of like African temples. Yeah, that's one of the need to be able to do intercultural storytelling. I know that Eram also spoke before, but I was really amazed when we met each other to discover the project Africa's Legend, which is really trying to research a lot in African history, myths, legend, but also ethnies, in order to create Marvel-like heroes, but let's say African heroes, and I really love that. Also, when I met Cetriaco Naomi from Grey Parrot Interactive, I really enjoy his Mancala 3D game because what he added to that game is all the different, because this game can be found in many, many different countries all over the world with different names. For example, it exists in India, it exists in Brazil. So what he added to the game is the possibility to play with each different game rule depending on the provenance. And when we talk about interculturality, I think it's very meaningful. I'm almost done. I'm sorry if I'm late. I think, yeah, I'm super late. I wanted to show you Trans Factory by Afranemakov that I met in Ghana, one of the most promising gamer and artist I encountered. I really loved it because he's using eTrash to create some mobile trons, what he called trons, and then he used these trons to create a game. So it's, the name of the game is Trans Factory, but it's really made from the mobiles he created from the eTrash. So yeah. And to finish, I like to show you a game that isn't published yet by Low Game Studio. It's a new game studio in Togo. The name is The Road, A Tale of Two Siblings, and tells the story of young guy who wants to help his sister, and to help his sister he decides to migrate, and he has a lot of problem, and the moral of the story is that perhaps it would be better to do the best where he lives in order to succeed. So to conclude, I think that because I faced this discourse in almost all the countries I crossed, perhaps not in Brazil, not in India, but really most of the time I heard that our stories are not suitable for the international market. I really don't believe it's true. That it's too hard for the people to read the story in order to play. No, for each game we have to read the story, and I think that if we are able to read the story about the last World War II, why shouldn't we be able to read the story of you know, also that, and this I really heard that, for example, in Mexico, really much, in Argentina, in Nigeria, I heard, yeah, but what is coming from our country is not good. We only believe on things coming from the US or from England. This is really a belief that has to be changed, because I think that it's not true for for books. Sorry, it's not true for cinema. So why should it be true for games? I would say also that the most important now to do is to persuade the governments and the politicians, but also the universities, that it is really urgent to train and educate people in game design and game development. It's really, I think, a necessity. The entertainment in games are the most powerful entertainment industry. So the government and universities really have to teach game design and development now. I also do believe that we have to create the local audience. If we want to play local games, we need to create the local audience and to educate the younger generation to other type of games by promoting indie games in schools, but also by organizing games workshop, because if we want to have an audience and to have people to buy our games, we need to create this audience, and we need to promote other type of games, otherwise they will only want to play the same games ever and ever. I also do believe into collaboration between each other and to create new collaborative networks between countries. What you are doing, this Pan-African Game Jam, is I think amazing, because there are a lot of skills available in Africa. I also do believe that passion has to be the main word before money, sadly, but money will come from the passion. And again, perhaps to help, there is a need to highlight more local success stories, because there are many local success stories. Thank you for your attention. I hope I'm not too late, and that's all. Thank you very much.
John isomblabele jisong kong isi Tora ambong belonge ndi tobiwa John higimur alama yingjel isuli nyengem
higimur binam anyeng yinje aye higimur anyeng yihen kong isi uke la nyeng jelu yung iye jelu kena iye
Inyulale Zinda betel Higi nduru Higi manoruna Higi sam Le ikena bis Koma ba sugo Babi yigile bis
About carry first of all. This is an app that you download, and when you download it, you don't want to answer a question and you wink.
Is that carry fast? Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Congratulations! With just 7 MB, you have joined the best mobile gaming community in Africa. Experience our amazing game categories and a wide range of offline games. Enjoy H5 games and instant tournaments, as well as filtered, hot, top, and new game selections just for you. To get more, log in with your Facebook or Google Plus account and explore more.
We play games to escape zombies, cast magic spells in Middle-earth, or just to pass the time on a commute. But what if we created games to change the way we view the world? Games that help us all create a vision for the future cities of Africa. Well, that would be a level up in anyone's game. It's why the Goethe Institute created Enter Africa, a gaming challenge that engages and encourages people to examine the social, cultural, and infrastructural needs confronting Africa's megacities by asking one simple question. What does the future of your city look like? With 15 teams from cities across the African continent, young talented game developers, architects, city planners, designers, creatives, and engineers were united together to think outside the box and creatively explore, question, and envision the past, present, and future of their cities. Their quest is to power up the way they are viewing their cities, the strengths, the challenges, the mojo that makes them unique. To create digital and analog gaming that's not only fun to play, but brings players together on a mission to seek out solutions, solve the puzzles, explore ideas, and adventure forward to collectively uncover the opportunities that exist within these African cities of the future. Enter Africa was launched at the beginning of 2018. Through a series of workshops, participants have got to plan, design, and develop their games to explore the past, present, and future of their cities, while breaking down barriers and borders and building bonds through the exchange of knowledge and ideas with other teams. The result? The launch in March 2019 of 15 action-packed, location-based games that will challenge the skills of local gamers, bring people together as they seek solutions or simply explore their cities and the obstacles that confront them, taking them on a journey to strategically tackle the themes of creativity and innovation, while discovering unknown and forgotten places as well as the need for infrastructure. Enter Africa then takes it to the max, combining the visions of the 15 city games into one mega African game, which promotes African cultures and the creation of a borderless continent, to be launched at Gamescom and different African cities in 2019 for the whole world to play. You can get involved by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or go to our website to find out what's happening. You'll also get to play the games. Get your game on. Be part of the Enter Africa movement.
Africacomicade.com. This is an app that you download, and when you download it, you just want to answer a question and you win.
Is that kind of fun? Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Stop right there. Do you have any illegal items to declare, sir? We can do this the easy way or the hard way.
Fuck it. Let's do it my way.
Where are these cards coming from?
Seriously?
Is this a dream? I got it. I got the interview. Echo, can you imagine this is finally happening? This is a pretty cool gun. They trained well. Appreciate it. Even more?
Killed them. What got into you?
First, I will get to you.
By then, you will understand.
John isomblabele jisongkong isi tora ambombelonge ndi tobiba. John higimur alama yingel isolinyengem.
Higimur binam anyenye aye. Higimur anyenye hen komisi uke la nyen jelo yonye jelo kena
Inyula lelo zinda betel